Welcome back to the Mutts Hockey Podcast presented by Kentwood Ford. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall, and we have our two co-hosts joining us this evening. We have Nick. How's it going, buddy?
Not too bad. It's been an interesting few days here as we roll into the dog days of summer a little bit. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, not doing too bad. I just got home from the Brick Invitational. I was watching the BC Canucks play Team Minnesota, and it was a tough loss for BC Canucks. And a good friend of our podcast, Gilbert Brule, who's texting me right now, and I got to text him back. So I'm gonna try to multitask on the pod here, but yeah, no, it's gonna be a tough one for them. They got a big game against the Detroit Red Wings tomorrow morning at 10:50 a.m., which should be a doozy of a game. It was shaping up to be the battle of the unbeaten teams, but a tough loss. And then also, anyways, we got another co-host with us. We got Philip Stockley. Philip, how's it going?
Doing pretty good, same as Nick there. Dog days of summer, trying to keep the boys entertained here because they're on summer break now, and yeah, it's fun watching free agency and the draft and all that fun stuff. So can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, it will be a really, I don't know. It's interesting what happened. Obviously, Ehlers signed today, so a lot of moving parts and organizations kind of staying the same, and there wasn't really the free agent frenzy as we thought it was going to be, and so this was a bit of a letdown. But I think going into it was pretty cool because there was a lot of chaos the day before, uh, and we've always wanted some of the chaos, but. I guess we'll start at the draft and kind of work our way into free agency. It's been the first time since we've been on, but Nick, what did you think of the draft in terms of the layout and any kind of picks that kind of caught your eye? And I know you're a Flyers fan too, so anything that kind of piqued your interest at the draft before we get into free agency?
For me, I know the NHL took a lot of heat for the format. I mean, uh, it wasn't the best draft I've seen, but I also didn't hate it. That night is all about those players and their families getting a chance to celebrate what's, an amazing accomplishment, whether they're a day one or a day two pick. So, I mean, if any of the people in the crowd, if any of the players or families were complaining, then I might have a little bit more of an opinion on it, but I actually didn't mind it. Um, as for the draft itself, I was really excited that the Flyers got Porter Martone there at number 6. I think, when you think of the prototypical Flyer player, you think about a big, strong guy he's going to be able to score. He's tough. And I mean, he's a later birthday, so he's a year older. And I think he's going to actually have a chance to probably at least play his 9 games next year, if not make the team. The pick that the guy that I was really looking at or interested in seeing where he landed was James Hagens. It's always interesting when a guy goes into the season as in the mix to be the first overall pick. And then, we saw last year with Cole Eiserman, he ended up going 20. And then this year, James Higgins didn't fall that far. He fell to 7. And, Boston, I think, had a really good draft. And it was good to see a bunch of Western League guys. There was, I think, between 9 and 14 or 9 and 15, I think everybody but one guy was from the Western League, which was awesome. So, the guys outside of the Western League, I'm not as familiar with, but I was really pumped for all those guys. And I'm a huge Disney fan, and I was really pumped with what Anaheim did with Roger McQueen, getting him his picture with Lightning McQueen at Disneyland after, and he picked his number. He's number 95, just like Lightning McQueen. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, that was for me. That was all this kind of stuff that stuck out to me.
Yeah. No, very well said, and I agree. I don't know what they're going to do next year with this decentralized draft. If they seemed like it was just going to be a one and done, but like Gary said, the vote was 26-6 or whatnot for this. So GM said they didn't like the traditional draft, and this is how they want to go about it. So maybe it stays, but Philip, as a fan of the Flames, and I know you like what the direction that they're going in, and maybe you kind of want a little bit more of a, like maybe the Austin Matthews era of the Leafs, the dignified tank. Maybe you want that for the Flames, so you can get your boy Gavin McKenna. But your thoughts from the Flames draft and what they did with the picks that they had made.
Yeah, I'll actually speak to the format as well really quick because I personally I wasn't a fan. Um, I felt like that war room or the what was it called? Is that what it's called? The
After
GM room or whatever.
after the players, yeah, there's obviously some audio difficulties. I think Michael
I just felt it was awkward. Like it was a little awkward. I don't know. Maybe I'm a traditionalist, but when I want to meet my boss for the first time, I want to shake his hand. And I don't know. I just missed that this year. I missed watching these young kids go up to their GMs and shake their hands and get a picture with their new GM. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm a traditionalist, but that's the way I like it. I like to see these teams with their own people, I guess, like on the stage. So, but I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. As far as the Flames, though, yeah, I was really, really happy, with their picks. Unfortunately, Calgary lost their first round pick, and um, that turned into Noah Dobson for Montreal, I guess. But and I don't know if you want to talk about that trade later, we can, but fortunately, we got New Jersey's first round pick a couple of picks later. Reshny looks like he's a good player. Um, and then I don't know, I was more excited about the second pick they took at 32 with Cullen Potter. And I don't know, people on social media seem to be pretty excited about this kid. And just watching him today in
the
the
yeah.
development camp down in Calgary. The kid looks super fast and he looks like an amazing skater. I don't know if you guys can speak more on that kid or not, but
Yeah, Connery was very bullish on the way he could skate, and probably the best skater in the draft is what Conroy said. I don't know what you saw that, Nick, and your thoughts of the movement that he has.
Yeah, I've only seen the videos, like the video clips, and man, he can fly. So, you know what? In a game where speed is very, very important and is even getting more important, seems by like every year. He's gonna be very, very good there. He's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah, he will be. And obviously, my pick of the draft was Mason West, and Chicago took him, and very happy for him. And we're gonna have him on next week, I believe. So that is going to be a pretty good interview that we have coming up here down the pipe real soon, if not the week after. But chatted with him after development camp. He said that he would find time to come onto our podcast. So just happy for him, and wishing the best for his future going forward. So it'll be fun.
well now we need to know you need to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs draft there, Bosco.
Yeah, I'm happy. I think Bell was the pick that kind of seemed to be the one that they really were bullish on in terms of what he's able to do, what he wants to do. I'm happy that they were able to get some more picks into their system because it's not a lot. And but yeah, he seems like the guy that is the prototypical power forward, and he's really looking forward to getting in and getting an opportunity. But obviously, he's going to be a couple of years away. But I thought the Leafs, did all right in the situation that was presented to them in terms of pick wise, and we'll see what they do going forward here with some assets. They're going to need you need some young players coming through your system because it's pretty hard to win when you don't have it. Now I get the Florida Panthers winning two back-to-back cups, and they don't have a long list of draft picks on their team. But some of the ones that do have are a number one defenseman in Ekblad, and a number one center in Barkov, and a number 2/3 center in Anton Lundell. Kind of after that, everyone else is a free agent signing or a trade coming over. So it's not a lot in the cupboards of there, but and they still got some good kids like Michael Benning's a friend of our podcast, and he's had two good years at the American Hockey League level, and I think he's set to make his NHL debut very, very soon. But I just don't know if he cracks that roster. So do they keep him and try to find room for him, or do they find a way to trade him to get him a home? But we'll see what they do there. But I thought they were pretty good. Um, I know, Nick, you were pretty bullish on the Oilers draft too. Kind of your thoughts on what they did there, and obviously Park drafted the second last pick. I believe he is related to NHL alumni Richard Park.
His nephew, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, is it Aiden Park, I believe, or my
Yeah,
yeah,
Aiden's his name, yeah.
yeah. So obviously, that was a talk the way it worked out, and I'll throw it over you on him. I don't know if you've ever seen him play or what you think of his game, but and what the Oilers were able to do as well too.
Yeah, I don't know much. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Aiden. He did finish the year last year with the Hitmen, played 3 games in the playoffs, I think it was. So, but I didn't really get when I watched most of the playoff games online, but I don't really remember him. Which is probably more on me than on him. When you don't have a lot of picks like Edmonton, I thought they had good value. Tommy Lafreniere, who was their first guy, I've seen him play since he was 14, and he's the kind of guy who I think I mean, I know that they didn't get real high grades, but I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be a fan favorite. Just the way that he plays, he works so hard. He's fast. He's competitive. He's just one of those guys that's just going to go and dig pucks out for you. But I think the sneaky good pick for me was David Lewandowski, who is. I mean, he's going to be really good. He was really good this year as a rookie in the Western Hockey League, and I mean, he's got some skill. I think he's just going to be a really good player. I think both those two guys have a definitely chance to play some NHL games. So, just considering where they were picking, I was pretty impressed with the guys that they ended up with.
What was your thoughts on? I know, and you submitted the question that we were able to ask Craig Button, but the thoughts on the players that were under 6 feet went a lot later in the draft than we probably expected, but it seems like undersized players aren't such a thing, and I can't remember which general manager it is. I wish I wrote this down, but he says he'll never draft a player under 6 feet ever in his organization as long as he's the general manager. So I wish I would have wrote that down. But just your thoughts on some of the undersized guys, where they went in the draft.
So I mean, the guy that I was most familiar with, like out of that questions, there's Cameron Schmidt, LJ Mooney, and Adam Benak. And the guy that I'm most familiar with, just because he plays in the Western League, is Schmidt. And honestly, I think he went to the perfect spot. He went to Dallas late in the third round, and he's about the same size as Logan Stankoven is. And Dallas, grabbed him in the second round a few years ago. And I mean, he just signed a huge deal with Carolina after being part of the Rantanen trade. So, he's proven himself to be an NHLer. And, I thought Craig, was really spot on with some guys just are going to take a little bit longer to get to the NHL. And, I think, Cameron Schmidt was Dallas's first pick. So I think he's going to get every opportunity to play for the Stars at some point. Benak is, I think he was top 5, I think, in the CHL import draft this yesterday. So hopefully he comes over and that'll help him as well. And but I mean, the fact that they went a little bit later just doesn't really surprise me. And I don't think it should surprise anybody because, we just finished watching Florida and with how big and strong that team is. And, it's a copycat league and there's not a lot of smaller guys on that team. And, so I think it's just kind of the way that things have always been, but you know what, sometimes those guys surprise you too. In the way that Logan Stankoven, or obviously he's a little bit taller, but Braden Point's not a huge guy, but he's a very prominent NHLer. So I think the Oilers with Matthew Savoy, he's 5'10". Like these guys are going to get chances, but there's a little bit of patience that I think you have to have with those guys.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll stick with the draft theme. We'll move over to the free agency. This last one here on this one. A player that the Tampa Bay Lightning drafted a few years back, in Isaac Howard, Nick. And obviously, we were reporting that the Oilers are in on him. There's definitely interest on both sides. And the Oilers feel like if they were able to get him, they can get him signed and get him in. A hell of a talent. Came in at the draft very flashy. He also said, "I'm the best looking guy at the draft, so I might as well be the best looking guy at the draft." I think everyone remembers that. That kind of comment. So obviously he's got some confidence with him as well too. But the Oilers have upped their offer from what it was, and that's what we were told. We reported that on Twitter tonight, and we'll see where that shapes up. I know I'm getting a lot of questions about when this is going to happen. I can't say when it's going to happen. It's pretty much whenever Julian Breezewell wants to pull the trigger on the trade, or if he wants to pull the trigger on the trade, he might not want to trade the player at all, and then the trade player, goes back to school, and then they just get a consensuary second round pick. But we'll see what happens. The Oilers have, put in the best offer that they feel of other teams have, and it's up to the Lightning organization if they choose to pull the trigger on that. But in your viewing and your thought process, do you think Howard is the type of player that would fit good into the Oilers system? And do you think he would be bullish to have a pretty good year in the American Hockey League? I don't know if he would be NHL ready right now, but your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you got a guy who's as skilled as him, he's definitely probably projects out to be a top six forward in the NHL. That he played in Michigan State last year. It was, I think, his third year of school. I think he had 26 goals and 52 points, which is pretty good in that league. It is a hard league because it's older. So he's obviously a very good player. I mean, I don't know what they brought their offer up to. The initial thing that I had seen was that they offered him, I think it was a first in 27, because I think that's when their next first round pick is, which, I mean, he was a late pick in the first round, and I don't think that would be enough. Julian Breezeball, I don't think is going to give him away. But I mean, I think he would probably fit in here. I wonder though, if you'd have to have that conversation with him, because if he's going to leave school, he might want to play in the NHL, right? We've seen over the past couple of years some of these guys who, Philadelphia lived it with Cutter Gauthier, and Pittsburgh or Winnipeg with Rutger McGroarty. Those guys both kind of forced their way out a little bit from those teams. And I think McGroarty did end up playing a little bit in the American League, but Gauthier hasn't. And I mean, maybe Isaac Howard doesn't want to play in the American League. The American League isn't a great league for high-end skill guys because it's hard, and you're playing against a bunch of guys who, the majority of the league is guys who are, they're playing to make a living in there, but they're, not all of them most of them aren't going to be in NHL. So it can be a hard league for players like Howard. So my guess is if he's signing to leave school, he wants to play in the NHL. So that's definitely going to be a conversation. I don't know if he would go to the American League, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that might be the holdup too, right? I think that's what the holdup is with Tampa, is that they don't think he's NHL ready, and it's the reason why they haven't signed him, and he hasn't signed because I don't know. Obviously, we'll see what the Oilers are desperate. They need players. They need young assets. And they're this isn't going to be an easy trade to make because the pedigree that he holds, and maybe he does make it and makes it over here with the Oilers, and then gets the opportunity to play in the top six role, with Leon Draisaitl and Andrew Mangiapane. So, because I don't know if Podkolzin's going to be that guy that can, I know he had spot duties there, but we'll get into that stuff in a bit. But Phil, we'll move over to the free agent frenzy here and what had transpired in terms of that. I don't know if you want to comment on Isaac Howard and what the Oilers are doing here. Phil, I give you the opportunity there. Or you want to?
Well, we could kind of transition straight from the free agency into the Oilers, and free agency from the draft into free agency. The Oilers, they got to be a little creative here because they're pretty strapped for cash. And, a guy like Isaac Howard isn't going to cost them too much off their cap hit, especially after, Bouchard just signed a $10.5 million deal with the Oilers, and you've got $20 million locked up on two defensemen on this team. It's a little bit steep, but you got to pay for good players, right? And that's just the name of the game now. And a lot of people are like, obviously the salary cap is going up, which is maybe a reason why he only signed for 4 years. But yeah, I think they're gonna have to get creative here with some of their picks. And Stan Bowman did say today that Curtis Lazar and Mangiapane both signed here for less money to play here in Edmonton. So it must be a desired place to come for players still. So
Yeah, and obviously Bob had Mangiapane on, and he told Mangiapane to talk about Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid calling him throughout that day to get him to sign later in the night. It was interesting. The Oilers had a press conference set for 2, got moved to 3, got moved to 4, got moved to 5, got moved to 5:30, and then it got canceled. And then Bowman spoke the next day. I believe that is that he was the only GM that didn't speak on July 1st. Obviously spoke July 2nd, but he was working really hard to get that deal done. And
too many irons in the fire, eh?
yeah, he did leave money on the table. We all know that is very true, and same with Curtis Lazar. So, but the question is, the Oilers better today than they are better from Game 6 and last year, and I don't think they are. I don't think they're. I don't even know if they're a top 3 team in their division in terms of what everyone's kind of been able to do. And I think Ryan Pinder from the Barn Burner podcast said it the best. After Nuge and Hyman, you got a lot of guys that are between third and fourth line wingers. Now they got Connor and Leon up the middle. So does that enough? Is that enough to get you through again? Probably, gotta give them the credit, but I don't know if they have that support system like they had before. And, we'll see. We'll see kind of where it all goes. They are going to be in tough. The cap has gone up, but they also had to pay 2 guys. So it eats up a lot of your money that you kind of can spend and have to spend. And you're going to have to rely on those value contracts. And that's probably why they're getting or trying to get Isaac Howard in and other guys in, because it's important to bring cheaper players under contract to win. Because, I know the cap's going to continue to go up, but, I guess, Nick, for you, does what the Oilers did on July 1st, is that more pleasing to Connor McDavid to sign a longer term extension? Because I don't know if it is, but what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, Connor McDavid, at his year-end presser there, made it very clear that Bouchard needed to come back. And I don't think there was ever any doubt that he wasn't going to come back. I think the 4-year term, I think we're going to see a lot more shorter term deals, just because the cap's going to go up so much. And when this contract's over, Bouchard's going to be 29 or 30 years old, so he's in line for another huge payday. I mean, he's an elite offensive defenseman in the NHL. If Draisaitl and McDavid were calling Mangiapane and brought him in here, I think that's great. To help recruit him. I hope that the Oilers they got in a little bit of trouble last year on July 1 when they set the expectations for guys like Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson so high. And you see the stuff about Mangiapane where he scored 35 goals and that one season, but I mean, traditionally, he's a guy that scores in the teens for goals. If he can get to 20 goals, I think that's pretty good. In that year where he had the 35 goals and 55 points, 8 of his goals were on the power play and 11 of his points were on the power play. So basically 20% of his production was from the power play that year. I mean, anybody who's watched the Oilers the past, 3 or 4 years knows he's not on the power play. He's not going to be a power play guy. So he's going to have to rely on his ability to score at 5-on-5, which he is quite good at. But he's going to bring speed. He's going to bring penalty kill. And I mean, if McDavid was calling him for recruiting and they signed Bouchard, my guess is he's probably okay with what they're doing. I mean, their roster, I would tell you, is unless they make a trade for an Isaac Howard or like Phil said, get creative and make a deal here. I would imagine that this is pretty much how they're going to start the season. But by the time the trade deadline rolls around, my guess is the roster won't look vastly different. But there's going to be some new faces here, because I think there's going to have to be, because I don't think that their bottom six right now, maybe not even their bottom six, but I don't think they really have a fourth line. I think their third line can be okay. But I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Matthew Savoy to, everywhere that I see on depth charts, they have him as a second line right winger. And that's a lot of pressure on a kid who's got 4 or 5 games of NHL experience. So, and there's a lot of pressure on this team to go on another run next year. So, it'll be interesting to see kind of where they're at next year at the trade deadline. But I mean, I can't imagine they're going to do much more this summer.
So, Phil, I got a note on the way home from the rink tonight. I guess to you as well, Nick, but to get your thoughts on this. Phil, on the way home, I got a note from someone that's close to Connor McDavid. Said Connor McDavid is more thinking about a 2-year contract extension at $16 million a year, so $32 million over 2 years. More than anything, that's what he's considering and looking at doing. I have not been able to confirm this and reached out to a few people. Usually kind of reach out to about, you get something like that. Yeah, you reach out to a source, and then you reach out to, a few other sources after that. But we have a source directly involved with this, and I reached out to that person and haven't heard. But this kind of a friend of his said, this is what he was talking about and hearing and whatnot. It just, would that be something, the smart thing for Connor to do? And we obviously know whatever Connor tells the Oilers is doing, he's going to do. But if Connor is thinking that, do you think that's more good thinking? 2 years gives the Oilers this year and 2 more years to get him into a Stanley Cup window of winning one. And obviously they're 0-2. So with that now, but at least the next 3 years, you have to get one cup.
It's, they've been so close. They've been 1 game away and 2 games away here in the last 2 seasons. I can't imagine how frustrating that is, especially for a guy like Connor McDavid, who eats, breathes, sleeps hockey. Hockey, hockey, hockey. Hockey is that guy's life. Hockey has always been that guy's life. And all that guy wants in his life is to win a Stanley Cup. You sign an 8-year deal here, there's a good chance you're going to have some pretty crappy years here too of losing. It's just the ebbs and flows of an NHL team. You look at the Chicago Blackhawks, they went on their dynasty, and then Taves and Kane were on crappy teams after a few years, right?
Yeah.
It just happens. So, and I'm not coming on here saying, oh, he's going to sign a 2-year deal and then he's going to leave. I think he made it pretty clear that he's going to be careful and he's going to see the direction that this team is going. So that's maybe his and like you said, it's just a note that you got. Like, we're not breaking that or anything, but it's just a, whatever Connor McDavid signs, I think that's probably his window to try to win one here in Edmonton. And then maybe if he wins one here in Edmonton, he stays. He's an Oiler for life. But I went through it. I went through it as a Flame, and I know I was bringing up the Flames, but I'm a Flames fan. I went through it with Jarome Iginla. I never wanted to see Jarome Iginla leave the Flames, but at the end of the day, when the writing's on the wall and you're never going to win a cup with that team, you want them to go do well somewhere, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
that's your thoughts there, right? So yeah, like I sent this note a couple of days ago, came back today on the way home. I haven't really been able to respond because once I walked through the door, we jumped on. I did quickly have a couple minutes to send out to, the people that I would trust with this information in terms of them knowing it, checking it, understanding it, hearing it. and all that. And obviously, we have it, like I say, we have a source inside the organization, and it's my source with the Oilers has not gotten back to me on this, and but this is a friend that is close with Connor and knows Connor very well. But again, we're not reporting it. It's just a friend saying something. So we'll wait and see on that front. But Nick, your thoughts? 2 years, $32 million, $16 million AAV gives the Oilers this coming season and two more with Connor. If that does happen, we're not saying it's going to happen. We're just saying if it does, is that fair enough to Connor to give the Oilers that much time to find him a Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, at that point, he'll be 30, right? If like let's say he signs the 2-year extension, he's 30 years old. And I mean, if they haven't gotten over the hump, so to speak, to get a Stanley Cup in that time, I mean, you can look around the league and you see a guy like Sidney Crosby, who's basically played what the last 4, 5, maybe 6 years in, the mushy middle, right? Pittsburgh's just not good enough. And he's like, unless he moves out of Pittsburgh, which I don't think he ever wants to do, he's probably not going to win again. Now he's already got 3, which probably makes it a little bit easier to stay a Penguin for his career. But for Connor, he made it very clear he wants to win a Stanley Cup. I don't think anybody can deny how competitive he is, and think that he's bluffing about that. So, I mean, yeah, it puts a lot of pressure on the organization, but I think that that would be, to me, the 2-year deal would be McDavid's olive branch to the organization. Like, you guys got 3 years. Let's get this figured out. Now, if it doesn't happen and he signs for longer, or maybe he gets something closer, like 4 years, like Bouchard or whatever, there's still that window that puts pressure on the organization, because whether he's 30 or 32 or 34, there's going to be teams ready to back up the Brinks truck if he's going to market. Um, and so the Oilers have to make it worth his while to stay here. If they need to deliver, they need to deliver on their cup. They said a cup or bust. It was after they lost to Vegas, and they've been living that for the last 2 seasons. And they've been a little bit quieter about it this past year than they were the year before. But I mean, that's the reality of where this organization's at. It's cup or bust, because I mean, if he's as serious as I think he is about winning, if they can't figure this out in the next 2, 3, 4 years, and they can't get over the hump, I don't know anymore. Honestly, I've always felt like he would sign here long term, but I mean, who knows now? The financials of the league have changed so much, and he's earned the right to have a legitimate shot. And like Phil said, he's had 2 really good chances here, but the rest of the Western Conference is getting better. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard conference this year. There's no easy outs based on, just through trades and free agencies. So yeah, just, this year. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think it's a smart business. It would be a smart business decision for him if that's what he decides to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our Edmonton Oilers report, sponsored by our friends at Shadified Salon and Barbershop. They got the 3 locations in Edmonton, Ellerslie downtown, and the famous North Side location. So tell them that the Two Mutts Podcast sent you when you guys go to Shadified. They also are the official barber of the Edmonton Oilers. So I know there's another guy in the city trying to claim that. Ain't happening, bud. So that is the Edmonton Oilers and Shadified partnered up for 8 years, I believe now. So congratulations to them on that. Okay, let's move over to our Flames report, sponsored by our friends at Martelou Barbershop in Calgary. They have been partnered with them for quite a few years too. So get your fresh fades or anything you guys are looking at Martelou Barbershop. Nick and his team there will take care of you. They got the location in Calgary. All right, Phil, you are a big Flames fan. Your thoughts on the moves that Connie's been able to do so far in free agency, and the outlook here with Rasmus Anderson, which is an ongoing topic every single day.
Well, I'll start with free agency, and I love that Craig is kind of sticking to his guns and he's not jumping to, we got to go be a playoff team right now. So, they've got cap space, but they didn't go big game hunting, which I loved. I loved the subtle little moves he made, bringing Joel Hanley back. Great move. We love Nacho here, friend of the podcast as well. Um, so then you hear the reports about Rasmus Anderson and that he only wants to sign long term in Vegas, and it just
But
feels like Noah
that got
Hannafin all over again.
that got shot down by Conroy. So that I don't know if that. Anyways, I know Pierre LeBrun.
Yeah,
Yeah, Pierre LeBrun said it. Conroy said it. That isn't the case. But anyway, sorry. I just want to state that.
no, it's all good.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good. And then you hear Dreger say that, LA made a very, very good offer for Rasmus Anderson and it didn't work out. Um, you kind of wonder what that would have been, but I don't know. I like the fact that Conroy's kind of sticking to his guns and he said straight up, I don't mind starting the season with Rasmus Anderson. I'm not just going to trade him for the sake of trading him. So I'm liking the way Craig Conroy's running the team. He's, sticking to his plan and the game plan, and he's not getting too excited too quickly, and there is a very, very, very good player coming into the draft next season. So I don't know if Calgary wants to maybe tank it for 1 year. I'd be totally fine with that.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll see there. Obviously, great on Nacho coming back. Morgan Frost, the deal. So we'll see what happens with the
Yeah,
Sorry deal. That is the last little piece of business. And then Costco came back. So, and then, yeah, they just pretty much have a three goalie system. Obviously, we'll see Wolf will be the starter, and then there will be some competition in that position as a backup. And then yeah, you just go from there, and you got a pretty solidified back end, and we'll see what they do with
pretty crowded though, eh?
it. Is crowded, but that
Yeah.
is good, right? I think depth is good at that position, and not a lot of teams have that. So I think that's pretty good. But all
What
right.
do you think of these Bo Byram reports, Bosco?
It would be probably more of an offer sheet, it seems like, is because if everyone's kind of famous, Darren Dreger reported this too. Um, his agent is Darren Ferris. Darren Ferris represented Philip Broberg, so obviously we've seen what happened with that situation last year. So Darren Ferris is probably scounging the league, looking at maybe comparables for offer sheets, and because we're going to see some, they've talked about this a lot. That's why Keandre Miller got traded, because the Carolina Hurricanes said we're going to offer sheet him if you guys don't sign him, and they made the trade that they did. And obviously it's weird. I know he's getting paid more than Jacob Slavin, but that's just with the rising
Same
cap.
with Bouchard too, right? They said that there was going to be offer sheets for him as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. There was going to be that too. So
Which is why that deal got done that day.
yeah, which we reported on too. So but yeah, so it's kind of interesting there. I believe there was a gentleman Robinson out of the elite prospects that reported on the term and the AAV. I think everyone was saying 4 years, but a lot of people were going between 9.5 and 10. But I think it's Cam Robinson from there who had the term right. We knew that he was going to sign. We reported that there, but on that front. And but yeah, we'll see how it shapes up in terms of him. I think he would be a good add. They definitely were desperate for a left shot defenseman, and that could be you get him and you move out Anderson. Not saying that you would trade those two for each other, but you can get that. And if maybe it's an offer sheet, you bring him in for some picks, and then you trade Rasmus Anderson for probably some ready prospects, and maybe bring in some extra picks. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And I like that Conroy was very like he told him, he said he had a message for all the kids. He said, "Come get a job."
yeah, it's been that way since Conroy's took over, and he has lived by that. Come take a job if you want it, and he is sticking to his guns on that, and that management staff is sticking to their guns there too. All right, well, I know Nick's a big Flyers fan. There's some Flyers fans here in Alberta, but Nick, what's your thoughts on what the Flyers are able to do in free agency and in terms of their direction of their organization with Rick Tocchet now behind the bench.
I mean, I wasn't surprised that they didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Obviously the two big, you could put those in quotations. The big signings were Dan Vladar and Christian Dvorak, and I believe Dvorak played for Rick Tocchet when they were still in Arizona, the Coyotes. So there's obviously some familiarity there. Dvorak to me signing a 1 year deal, that's probably a trade chip, maybe closer to the deadline this year. But I mean, giving Vladar 2 years, like everybody, it's been the goaltending in Philly has always been a bit of a quagmire. You look at they had one guy who was a Vezina winner, but they traded him before that, and that was Sergei Bobrovsky. So I mean, Vladar is going to have a chance to come in and play games next year. So I think he'll probably start the majority of the games, and see where he's at. They don't have a lot there for goalies. Erson's okay. For young guys, they got Carson Bjarnason coming in, but he's only 20, so he's probably 4 or 5 years away. So, yeah, I mean, it was quiet. I was happy about that. They made their big move when they traded for Zegras. But yeah, I don't really, I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't think there's anything they can do to become a playoff team next year. And like Phil mentioned, with Gavin McKenna coming into the league or coming into the draft next year, I'm kind of okay with that. You know, I think that they'll be, I think that they're probably bottom 6 or 7 in the league again. I can't see them finishing any higher than that. And if they do, then they would have overachieved, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, very well said. And Vladar stands on his head. Maybe he is the goalie that takes him to the promised land in terms of the playoffs, because good goaltending is going to give you a good puncher's chance of that. So yeah, very well said there. We'll finish up with the Leafs. I just a quick little rip there. Obviously, yeah, tough to see Marner go, but that was pretty much the writing was on the wall in terms of that for most of the season, and it was pretty evident at the trade deadline that was going to happen. And he took off and went to Vegas, and good on the Golden Knights. They've been advertising him like crazy in Vegas too now, so he's all over the billboards wearing number 93 in homage of his favorite player Doug Gilmour. So congratulations to him on that. And yeah, I just think with the Leafs, they were able to get an asset back in Nick Waugh. They have a bit of cap space. They lost out on Mangiapane. They were in on him. They did offer him more money and more term, I believe, from what I was told, and he chose Edmonton. So not that it's a wrong thing. You have an opportunity and you feel like your team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row has that chance over the team that can't really get over the hump. So, and yeah, we'll see where they do. Michelli's a good ad. He's been kind of rumored to being shopped a lot out of Utah, and obviously that was able to happen for them. So does Easton Cowan crack the lineup next year? Well, they probably got to hope so for value contracts as well too. But and then they really didn't do much on the back end, and they still have the same goaltenders there. I think Derek Lalonde as an assistant coach is going to be a good ad for them. So that would be a bit of a nuance there in terms of that. I think he's a really savvy hockey mind, so I think we'll definitely see a chance to see that in the fold for them. And obviously, Brad Labrett went on to Seattle as the head coach, and he was running the PK there. And obviously, congratulations to Glenn Gullickson and Neil Graham. Gully back in Dallas, and Neil Graham being promoted from the American Hockey League to the NHL. So great work there, and great to see on that front as well too. But yeah, and obviously I think the big news today, guys, was Nikolai Ehlers. I agree. I thought it was odd not seeing him sign 7 years when he had an opportunity to sign 7. He left $8.5 million on the table, but gets 6 years at $8.5 million with the Canes. Just get your guys' final thoughts on that, and we'll finish up on a thought on Bob McKenzie to close out the pod. But Nick Ehlers goes to the Canes. Phil, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, they're loading up because they've got some stiff competition down there with Florida, right? So, good get for them. He's really going to help that team. It was like the Oilers against the Panthers last year in the finals here, just no answers, and it wasn't even close. Same thing for Carolina against Florida. That series wasn't even close. It was done before it even really started. So, yeah, just when you're trying to compete with a team in your division like that, you gotta swing for the fences and get some of the big guys off the board.
Mick, your thoughts on Ehlers?
I've always been a fan of Ehlers, so I think it's a good deal for Carolina. But the biggest thing is always, is he going to be able to stay healthy? I can't remember the last time he played, even 80 games. That's always been the biggest thing for him. And, the best ability is availability. So hopefully he can find a way to stay healthy. And I think he should do well there. He's obviously a skill guy that, has a little bit of edge and plays hard. So, I think he fits their mold pretty well. So I'm not surprised that he went there. And yeah, I think he's going to do good. Before we move on to Bob McKenzie, I have to ask
Yep.
Bosco, did you see the fight today at Leafs development camp between Matthew Holakar and Rhett Parsons?
I did see it on social media. I think Mark Masters
There
had.
was some anger going on there, eh?
So the funniest part to me, I saw the clip. I can't remember where I was watching it from TSN, but then they interviewed the Leafs second round pick from last week, Tinas Luke Koblar, and so he played in Sweden, and they asked him what he thought, and I don't think he's that kid. Based on the look on his face and how he was talking about it, I don't know if he'd ever seen a fight live before in hockey. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
He looked like he was like stunned, like he was like I it was pretty neat. It was pretty funny. So he's a big guy, so it was pretty funny though. You should go and watch his comments because he was like deer in the headlights kind of look. It was
Yeah, I
funny.
didn't see his comments, so I'll definitely check that out. That is funny for sure. So, yeah, obviously, you don't see that too often, especially in development camp, but it definitely transpired out there. That is for sure. But obviously, yeah, we saw Bob McKenzie. I think it was 48 years he's been covering the game of hockey, 25 at TSN. Yeah, like the original insider, created this great industry for the greats of the Elliot Friedmans and the Chris Johnsons and others that are doing this gig. And I thought it was pretty interesting of how it went out. He got the silver stick at the end. Usually get that for your thousands game, but his sons were names were on it, their grandchildren on it, and yeah, just what a beautiful moment for the Bob father. um Nick, as a guy watching him, what's your greatest memory and what's your thoughts on what he's been able to do for the game of hockey?
Well, I mean, first off, congratulations to Bob McKenzie on what was just an unbelievable career. 48 years is absolutely awesome. My memories of him being a big fan of junior hockey, just all the World Junior stuff every year, all the draft stuff every year. If he was on TV for anything, I would watch it. I always appreciated his insight. You see lots of insiders and lots of stuff now where there's lots of yelling and, fighting back and forth and, just like lots of arguments and stuff, even just on TV. But he was always so calm. He was always so calm about everything. He's a little soft spoken, but he always presented himself really, really well. I don't think I can ever remember a time where he seemed to get really, really, angry, fired up on TV. And no, I just so many memories that it's not going to be the same World Juniors or draft coverage, honestly, without him. It's going to be strange, this next year for sure.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I wonder who takes that helm, right? That's going to be an interesting one to find out who takes that. But some big shoes to fill. And Phil, what's your thoughts on the Bob father?
Yeah, Bobby Margarita, hey?
Yes.
He did have a hell of a career, and the thing that I love about Bob McKenzie is how he brought people along with him. And I've seen the messages between yourself, Bosco, and Bob McKenzie, and just how kind he was and how encouraging he was. And, it was never you were never like a threat. You were never someone who was gonna, take a story from him or a lead from him. He would actually tell you to run with it and go with it instead of stealing it for himself. Um, he's just like you said, he's the original insider, and I don't think he really could care less if somebody got a story ahead of him or a lead ahead of him. So, and one of the best things I love too about Bob McKenzie is as soon as free agency was done, he made it so clear that he's going to the lake and he's turning his phone off,
Yeah.
which is what I think we all need to do at some points in our life is just turn the phone off and enjoy life a little more. So, yeah, congratulations. Hopefully you can spend a lot more time out at that lake now and toss that phone in that lake maybe today, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, he's a beauty in every sense of the aspect of it. And yeah, I remember I went for breakfast with him here in Edmonton once, and what a moment that was, and just a great guy to just talk to, rub shoulders with, learn from. Yeah, and it was just funny because we all saw, hey, like World Juniors going on, and there's all these pictures and T-shirts of this guy's head and this guy's head. And No Dog's like, well, no one knows anything of me. So after the morning I had with Bob, I said, Bob, I'm going to come back with a surprise tonight. I'm going to bring my niece and nephew, and we're going to have O-Dog shirts. And he says, please do it. So, and obviously, yeah, people saw that picture on the panel there of us on the set. And I just remember walking up the stairs, and O-Dog was there just getting ready to go on air. And O-Dog, just as soon as he saw us, pictures, I saw us walking up with the shirts. He's like, "Look, that's me!" So it was kind of funny, and Bob was just laughing and brought us in. So it was, yeah. And James Duthie was just roasting the O-Dog as they always do. But yeah, great people, great for the game, and yeah, very very appreciative of the friendship that I was able to gather with him, and yeah, what an absolute legend it is, and we will miss him for sure. I wonder if there's any way in the next couple of years where the odd time we just get the tweet over the top rope with Bob, hearing that blank is going here or something like that, right? Like hearing Connor McDavid is going to the Toronto Maple Leafs or something. Right?
That's his style, hey? That's
Yeah,
totally his style.
out of nowhere, just how it comes over the top, right? So, or
I,
just go off to the sunset. I don't know. It'll be
I
a
have a feeling he's more likely to be like Kaiser Soze and just he's
thought.
gone more than
Yeah,
anything. I
yeah,
don't think you
yeah.
I can't imagine he
He made
pops
it
up.
pretty clear he's done. So,
Yeah.
how legend would it be on a January day where he just says, "Hearing this," and
He
something
might get bored.
he might. You never know, but anyways, all right, let's finish up on that. Again, been at the brick tournament all week. It's kind of cool. I saw Ethan Morrow there the other day. I think he was even on the ice handing out awards. So great to see great guys like him giving back to the game. He just followed us on Instagram too, so maybe we'll try to reach out to him to see if
Yeah, he's actually running a hockey camp right now out at Silent Ice.
yeah. So maybe we'll reach out to see if we can get him on to the Mutts Hockey Podcast. If not, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we're looking forward. We don't know if we'll be back doing stuff like this for the rest of the summer, guys. This might be the end of our roundtable discussions until September, but we will be dropping episodes once a week in the summer, and those will be player interviews that we have with CHL players, NHL players, AHL players, and in terms of that. So just keep an eye on your platforms. We'll have some of those interviews pop up here and there. Yeah, so looking forward to kind of having guys like Mason West on, Blake Fiddler, in terms of those kind of guys, and obviously Joel Hanley too. So, but again, go down to the brick. It is a fun tournament. It's great to see guys like Max Pacioretty, Gilbert Brule, just many of the other greats there. going back and giving to the game. I was a bit surprised to find out that Team Alberta doesn't have one kid from Edmonton on it. So I was pretty surprised. They got some imports from other provinces. So I was very surprised if they were able to do that. But hey, but
Their tournament.
What's that?
So it's their tournament. So.
It is their tournament, so they can grade it. But yeah, someone told me that tonight, and I was like, "Oh, there's no way." And yeah, he showed it to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So, but yeah, they're rolling right now. Obviously, Detroit's rolling. The BC Canucks tough loss tonight after a 2-game day. Won their first game in the morning, and then just a tough go. But I think the game of the day tomorrow will be Detroit versus BC Canucks. Two really good teams, and BC needs that win badly. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. You guys catch us down there. We'll be there all throughout the rest of the tournament, and I don't know. I'll be there, and then I don't know if these other mutts will be there as well too. But if you guys are looking to interact, appreciate those who have interacted with me and others. Great to see and meeting some new fans along the way too. Don't be shy to come up if you recognize us. We'll definitely look into to that. And Nick,
Give us a bark.
yes, give us a bark. Nick, you got anything you want to add before we head out?
No, I just wanted to thank you for having me on here for the last half of the season. I had a lot of fun. So thanks very much. Appreciate it, Bosco.
Yeah, no, and we're hoping to get you on for some player interviews. That's up to you though. So, but definitely want to keep you in the fold. And Philip, thoughts?
Yeah. Thanks, Bosco, for making me come on.
Put a gun to your head, right? So
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
No, it's always a lot of fun coming on here, and you know, as Bobby Margarita would do, go enjoy your summers, everybody. Don't take this game too seriously. And yeah, relax and enjoy life a little bit.
And if you guys are engaging in any kind of wobbly pops, our DMs are always open. If you're drunk, you need a ride, send us a DM. Let us know. We'll come pick you guys up. We do not want any of our fans, any of our listeners drinking and driving in the summertime. So please reach out. I don't care what time it is. I'll get up in the morning. I'll come get you. We'll take you home. We'll make sure you guys get home safe and sound, or work on something for transportation for you guys. But please do not drink and drive at all, not even just in terms of this summer, but at all. But if you guys are looking at any kind of support in terms of that, just please keep an eye out for each other, and stay kind, stay humble, and we love you guys. Chat soon.